Elatis. Can everyone say A? Latis. You put your tongue behind your front teeth for the LH sound. So elatis is good morning in Halkamelum, your first language lesson here. My grandmother was fluent in all the languages that surrounded us, and so I always say, if you ever go to the States and they say Canadian A, you know where they got that from. I was just given some information released yesterday from the Washushuck Onagam Nation, St. Mary's Indian Residential School, Kenora, Ontario, Treaty 3, that they found 171 reflections. And I know it's just one of a number of them that they're going to be looking at. And again, I look towards our green shirts here, look towards those folks that are from that area to please take care of yourself. Make sure you reach out if you need support. And again, I say that when we begin to turn this around, it becomes a strength and a foundation that we stand on. So each and every one of you, I just appreciate, and I'm humbled by your courage. We say, "Etias as a huamtamata huamtathalata shkolawan." And it means a strong mind and a strong heart to do the work in a good way. And a strong mind means you're doing something most of the time against all odds. So thank you for your good work. And it gives me great pleasure this morning that we're going to hear from our youth. As a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother now, it really is a testimony, I believe, to each and every one of you as well. We're doing something right when our youth follow, when our youth listen. And I shared with the young man who did the opening prayer, Salsa Kulanu. I watched him grow up. I watched him grow up in his community, and I'd see him from time to time. So to hear him share and speak in his language and share in song, I know that fills my heart. So this morning we're going to hear from our youth and panel. We have both Megan Metz Heisler. You have about 20 minutes. And we have Vanessa Prescott from BC Métis Foundation. So please give them a warm welcome. Haita. She's tall enough, she doesn't need to stand on this.
Okay. Technical difficulties here I'm trying to figure out. My apologies. Okay. So, Yaut, Exnaqua. Heit mas, mus mudich, gukulut, guelut, angwa. Nuch Megan Metz ti, granduch Cha'abaklich glayu. Ge kalins amots iche. Hal chenuch nugwa. Chais la nugwa. Hello, good morning. Chiefs, matriarchs, my fellow community members, my fellow Native peoples, and honored guests. My name is Megan Metz. My English name is Megan Metz. My ancestral name is Qanduch, a name passed down to me by my great-grandmother. Sorry. I come from the Kilauea clan in the Haisla Nation. I come from Tsimotsa, also known as Kitimat Village in English. I'm grateful to be here today and would like to say, Anaut ach nagutla, I thank you to the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples for welcoming us into your unceded territories to have these important discussions over the past few days. In my time here today, I would like to share some of Nis Nuyam, which is my story or my truth. And Nuyam in Cha'izlakiala translates to story. It includes our history shared in our old stories, as well as the memories held by our elders. And the more I learn about it, the more I feel it represents so much more than that, this simple translation given to it in English. Because, as has been mentioned, it is through our stories that we learn our history, our identity, our protocols and beliefs, and the natural laws of the land in each of our respective territories. Our ancestors, those that came before us, they had a special relationship with their surroundings, with their communities. Our deep understanding of the environment around us is what helped my people, for example, survive the heavy snowfalls and the strong north winds we can experience in our winters on the Northwest Coast. And this knowledge we've acquired over generations allowed us to live in harmony with the natural rhythm of the earth in each passing season and cycle. And we didn't have calendars. We used Giltwanuch, Canoe Mountain, located directly across from our village. We had designated people in our community who would stand at the Dadu Kwelatsi, the lookout point, and they would watch the setting sun every single day. As the sun set in very specific locations along this mountain range, it told us when our resources would be in season and what kind of weather patterns may impact that resource gathering. We didn't navigate our waters using maps. We used the mountaintops and different landmarks as guides. We didn't have a written language or books to read. We sat around with our families, elders, and leaders as they taught us how to speak, how to behave and conduct ourselves, who we are as distinct peoples, and how to live in a humble way. To me, these are all forms of data sovereignty in action. As has been mentioned yesterday by the special interlocutor, they shared a quote about us always being data gatherers and data warriors, and I feel like those are some perfect examples of just that. In my nation, when we reached certain milestones and ages in our lives, we were given different responsibilities and expectations. My nation follows a system of matrilineal inheritance, meaning we inherit our identities from our mother's family line. The names we carry, the clans we become members of, the crests and regalia that we wear in the feast hall, and much, much more. All of these things together helped us shape and form Wach Ni Nuyam, all of our stories. Our family stories, clan stories, community stories, individual stories, stories with neighboring nations, and so on and so forth. We carved these stories into cedar. making masks, totem poles, canoes, paddles, rattles, bent wood boxes, bowls, and spoons. We wove these stories into baskets, capes, mats, and headbands. We painted and carved them into the rock bluffs around our territory. You see, our lives were once filled with our beautiful artwork. It wasn't just something to be looked at and admired. We lived it. We lived with it and among it, and we utilized these items on a daily basis. Each item represented part of the collective story that we had as a people. Everyone had a piece of it, like a puzzle. And like a puzzle, we need all of those pieces to get a clear, full picture. And again, this is data sovereignty to me. It's our vision, our ways, our protocols, and our methods. I feel myself echoing the words shared by Siam Tanat yesterday, who shared her weaving pattern as a form of data sovereignty. This was our way of declaring who we were, what we stood for, and what we represented. These were and are our inherent rights, rights we've always had, rights that we still have today. Our sovereignty and Indigenous governance should be not only acknowledged, but uplifted, respected, and truly honored and implemented. I heard it yesterday, and I too am tired of talking the talk. I feel like it's time to walk the walk, Canada. A major shift is on the horizon. I myself come from a family of survivors. My grandfather attended the residential school in Port Alberni, as did his two older brothers. My grandmother attended the day school located in our own community, as did my mother and her siblings. Myself and my brothers are the first generation in our family to not have to attend a residential school or a day school for any length of time in our life. And unfortunately, as many of us are aware, these schools brought some really harmful cycles to our communities. Substance abuse, anger, shame, fear, and more have impacted just my family line, for example. And I didn't realize the extent it had impacted me until I was in about grade 11 or 12. I took the first People's English class that my local high school offered, and that was where I began to unfurl these parts of my own history that had been previously hidden away from me. We read the book Indian Horse by Richard Wagamese, and it made me very emotional each class we had to sit there and read. I felt both heartbroken and rage at the same time. It was very confusing. It made me start to ask my family more questions about it, but my grandfather was always reluctant to share his truth with us. I think some stories are just so heavy, you don't wish to share the weight of them with your loved ones. Maybe he just wasn't ready. Before his time came to journey home to the other side, I wish I could have learned more about his experience. He wasn't ready to share during his time here, and my heart breaks a little more each time I learn new pieces of his story from others in our community. I realize now that maybe this was his way of trying to protect me. He wanted me to only experience unconditional love, kindness, and joy. He was my number one supporter in all that I did, and he played a major role in my upbringing. Reflecting on all of that now, I'm grateful to have had the time with him that I did. I'm grateful he made it home. I'm grateful he made it home, because now I know there are many children who didn't. I pray for them, and I keep them in my heart. And I know my grandfather is not alone in his decision to not share his story. As was mentioned by some people yesterday, some don't want to revisit such a dark period in their lives. Others are tired of sharing their story over and over again, with nothing being done to bring them justice and truth that they deserve. And that is why the data and the stories that have been documented should be made available to us, with no hesitation, no hurdles, and no delays. We deserve to know our history, what was done to our family members, our loved ones, our people. No more turning a blind eye and sweeping things under the rug. No more denying what our survivors have been saying for years. No more belittling what it was, because it was genocide. And I know all of us in here in this room know that, and the world is waking up to this reality. So now it is time for accountability, for answers, for respect, transparency, and compassion. Our little ones deserve that, and our survivors deserve that. I am the former digitization and preservation technician for my nation. I worked closely with our archives, and I learned a lot during my time in that position. There were some really beautiful moments that I treasure. I felt I was given the opportunity to reconnect to our old ways of being while learning from people who are no longer earthside. Their stories, memories, photos, and recordings truly live on through those archives. And being able to connect with knowledge keepers, fluent speakers, and elders in my community to continue adding to this knowledge base, it was empowering for me as a Chaisla. Yet in the same breath, although the good outweighed the bad by a landslide, there were also some extremely difficult moments too. Seeing the ways our people had been described by missionaries and settlers who lacked context and connection to our ways of life. It was unsettling to see how they viewed us in their own words. So I can understand where people were coming from over the past couple days with their warnings about the language used to describe our people. And this data, although it was used against us, rather than for us, we deserve access to this too. It's time for the light to be shone on this truth in its entirety, as uncomfortable as it may be. And I can say from my experience, it can be quite awful to read sometimes. The ways they tried to justify their actions, believing that they were helping us, when all they did was cause harm. Attempting to destroy what they simply could not understand. And yet, here we all still stand today in our power, coming together to speak our truth, support each other, and bring our loved ones home. It's time for Canada as a whole to see this uncomfortable truth for what it is. Our people have been existing in this state of discomfort since the arrival of these settler nations. It's time for them to feel it, see it, sit with those unsettling feelings, and learn from it so it does not happen again. And as I wrap up my time here today, I just ask that all of you please remember to take care of yourselves as you continue this work. Know that I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you for all that you do and all that you are. And although it can be hard at times, I believe we are doing good work here on behalf of our communities, ourselves, all those impacted by these atrocities. And when you have those days where things become heavy and dark, lean on your loved ones for support. And remember that, hey lanakolanis, we are all heading in the right direction. Hey lanakolanis, we are all heading in the right direction. Wah, analjach nagutla.
Ti'italato. I'll now introduce Vanessa Prescott.
I am 5 years old. My dad is working in my grandmother's garden. He receives a phone call and collapses onto his knees in the soil, puts his arms up to the sky, and begs for it not to be true. She's gone, he says. Your sister is gone. What do you mean gone, I ask. She's gone, he cries. It's okay, Dad, I say. She's not gone. I do not understand death. It's not okay, he yells. She's gone. My sister was murdered at 6 months pregnant. It took me 22 years to talk to my dad about it. I didn't want to re-traumatize him. I asked if he would come to the Stolen Sisters March with me. He said, I didn't realize it affected you so much, my girl. It affects me too. When we got to the march, a woman smudged us with buffalo sage. The moment the smoke entered our lungs, we both became immediately undone. I wasn't expecting to unravel so quickly, but that's the power of our traditional medicines. Communities sensed how much we needed that healing and brought us to the front of the march. We looked up to the sky and saw 2 eagles flying directly above us. My late sister was an eagle dancer, First Nations on her mother's side, and Métis from our father. The eagles followed course with us for the remainder of the march, from Government Street right up until Parliament in Victoria, a mature eagle and a juvenile one. The entire march witnessed it. My dad had his hands up to the sky, crying and laughing with tears of joy this time. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. It's your sister and the baby. We both got on the microphone at the legislature that day and shared our story. He spoke of the importance of keeping our women and our young ones close, keeping them safe. Maybe some of you were there with us that day. I start with this personal story because I have lived with the intergenerational trauma of what it means for a parent and for a family to lose a child. I tried for 22 years to process that pain on my own, and it didn't go anywhere. It wasn't until I saw our pain validated and reflected back to us on the faces of those in community that these words came to me. Together is how we heal. Let's all take a sip of water together. Cheers. A few days ago, I received an email from Indigenews sharing teachings on the Cree word oasis. In English, we use the word child, but oasis does not mean child. It means a sacred gift on loan from creation for you to raise on behalf of creation. All things in perfect timing. Tanshe Vanessa Prescott, Dishinakashun. Hello, my name is Vanessa Prescott. I'm a Métis clinical herbal therapist and Indigenous patient navigator for BC Cancer. The lands and waters that I call home are Shawalikan, Shawnigan Lake, though I now reside on Coast Salish territories, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. My paternal grandmother is Margaret Desjardins. My ancestors are Plains and Woodland Cree, rooting back to Red River, Manitoba, the birthplace of the Métis. Thank you for trusting me to be here today. The ways that life has carved itself into me has given me a certain depth and capacity to sit with others in their pain. Leading up to the Stolen Sisters March, I thought of myself as this clinical herbal therapist, and yet I wasn't willing to be vulnerable enough to let other people see my pain and allow for myself to be held. Healing isn't always about making someone feel better. Sometimes it's just about sitting with them in their pain. If you want to help others heal, you need to have the humility to allow others to help you heal too. I have worked closely with residential school survivors, 60s scoop survivors, and those who've lost loved ones in Indian hospitals. While working at a transition house as a health and wellness worker, I remember thinking to myself, our nation is in heartbreak just hearing about what happened at residential schools. Most people have not witnessed how the impact of these traumas has affected and continues to affect the living survivors and our families, but we have seen it and felt it firsthand. We have also seen deep belly laughter, wit, selfless care, generosity, and strength amongst these same people. Though I was their wellness worker, their reciprocity, generosity, and care lifted my spirit in times where I needed it more than they could have ever possibly known. Often I have found that those who have the least give the most. So-called Canada has largely ignored the rights of Métis people, despite being named as a distinct Indigenous people, Section 35 of the Constitution Act, 1982. Laws stripped Métis people of their land rights and forced them to live on the margins of society, which led to the name road allowance people. Road allowance referring to the portion of land that's between the edge of the road and where a farmer's fence or crown land would have started, so basically a ditch. Métis experiences have consistently been left out of the national narrative, including the harms of residential school. The experiences of Métis people in the Indian residential schools were complex. We were not governed through the Indian Act, but we were considered dangerous and rebellious, which is true. Yes, it's true, we're dangerous and rebellious, watch out. Due to inconsistent records, regulations, and status accounts, it's impossible to know how many Métis children attended residential schools. However, Métis Memories of Residential Schools by Daniels and Thomas suggests Métis represent 1 in 5 Indian residential school survivors in the prairies. Authorities chose Métis children based on if the school needed more children for funding to fill quotas, how Indian they were, or how connected they were to traditional ways of living. The more connected, the more dangerous. The more connected, the more dangerous. All were deprived of the care and nurturing of their parents, aunties, uncles, and grandparents. the care of their community, their true community, their family. Even though the Indian Act did not and does not apply to us as Métis people, if you are Métis, it did apply to our very recent ancestors, displacing us as Métis people and disconnecting us from land, culture, language, and abundance. The importance of our people and communities having access to our own information is apparent. Our stories are part of this data. Without our stories, so-called Canada tried to sweep it under the rug. The more our stories become part of the historical record, the closer we can get to the truth. Who were these children? Why did they die? Where were they buried? Studies show that children of residential school survivors have greater rates of depression, substance use, and suicide attempts. If reconciliation means building peace and acceptance with what has happened, how do our Indigenous relations find peace and accept genocide? When our pain becomes too much, we must return home. Pekiwu, we call it in Michif, return home. Returning home is sacred as we think of all those who never did. Return home to the land, the waters, ourselves, each other, our languages and medicines, our art, music, dance, ceremony, and traditional practices. Uncovering these unmarked graves helps these souls find their way home. Think of a time when you've been in the most emotional pain. What did you want during that time? For many of us, it is to be held and witnessed. As Indigenous people, the land holds us in ways that not much else can. When we don't know what to do with our pain, we give it to the land and waters. This might look like going for a spirit dip, forest bath, giving your pain to the muskeg, returning the ashes of your smudge to the earth, cleansing your tears with river water, inviting the heart-healing medicine of tart wild berries and roses to help bring us back to ourselves. To me, how we move forward is learning how to feel safe, because so much of trauma manifests as not feeling safe and shows up as a dysregulated nervous system. And this is why we see addiction. This is why we see coping mechanisms that have manifested in unhealthy ways for our people. And we've all felt the effects of that. One of the quickest and most accessible ways to signal safety is to return to the breath. Let's all do one together. A deep inhale through the nose, and a long exhale through the mouth. Ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe? How can you help those you love feel safe? Beyond that, how can we create more cultural safety within communities? Sometimes when you're not feeling strong, the community will call on your strengths and your gifts, and that is to remind you how strong you are and how much you have to offer. We must strip ourselves like cedar bark is stripped, stripping away our egos so that we remember our gifts are our responsibilities to share. To the residential school survivors in my life, your strength is my strength. It will help me on this journey of lives touching other lives. Marcy, thank you, all my relations.
I believe we just witnessed what hope looks like. Thank you to both Megan and Vanessa. Thank you so much. And I know some folks will travel home today, and our elders told us that when you travel like this, to make sure you call your spirit home. So when we travel, our elders tell us today, years gone by, you travel by canoe here in our territories. So your spirit kind of moved with you. When you get on an airplane, you go, shh. I just encourage you to call your spirit home to it.